Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Mile a Minute Movie Talk with your host, Diligent Picks, as well as my other fellow host, Lucas of Legray Films.
Hello, hello. How are we doing? It's been a month.
It has been at least a month. I lost track.
Yeah, it's been a good month for us though, because where we haven't done as much of this, we have been doing a lot, and I mean a lot of movie watching.
Yes. Yeah, even though we haven't been talking about movies officially on the interweb together, we have been doing a lot of it out of this. and,
Yes.
and so we apologize for the delay. As many of you are aware, there's been a lot of films coming out, particularly with Barbenheimer hitting the
What?
cinemas.
I
Hmm
know, right? Missing the big one out of everything.
What
It's
happened
decided.
was Lucas saw Barbie, and then Lucas saw Oppenheimer, and then I saw Oppenheimer, and then I saw Barbie. But it took me a lot longer to see all of those movies. Uh, And then we started seeing some other films that we would like to talk about as well. We might not get around to talking about them today, but we definitely want to put out another episode soon and talk about movies such as Talk to Me and Past Lives, a couple of other favorites we've seen this year. Um, but today, I think we owe all of you the satisfaction of talking about Barbenheimer,
Yes.
Barbie and
So
Oppenheimer.
So I think we both ended up doing the different versions of the order that we watch them. I watched Barbie opening night on Thursday when it came out, Thursday 26th. And I think you saw Oppenheimer first and then Barbie. And I went Barbie on Thursday. And then the week after that, I went to San Francisco and saw it in true 70 millimeter action in IMAX at
What
the Metreon. So that was
are
cool.
you? Yeah, I saw Barbie at our local cinema here, which does a Dolby Atmos and a 4K digital projector. And it's extremely loud. Sorry, this was Oppenheimer, if I didn't specify that. But yeah, this is extremely loud. And people were complaining a lot about the typical, we'll get into this more when we do the full review, but
Yeah.
the typical Christopher Nolan trend of
Sound.
the
Yes.
sound mixing. But I heard everything pretty darn clear in this theater because it was so loud. There were
Um,
a few moments though.
for IMAX, it wasn't that loud for me. I mean, it was loud, but it was like tolerable loud. I
Hmm
feel like I've seen louder movies in our local theater UDC
Yeah,
that they have.
I think this theater just cranks their volume up to 11.
Is that Roxy or Airport?
The Reading Cinemas Runner Park.
Oh, Reading. Yeah, you saw that Reading.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
was a good experience other than the seats being really uncomfortable for
yeah,
three
they do
hours.
have the most. Them and what's it called? The Petaluma one have the worst seats in my opinion.
Well, Petaluma at least has luxury recliners.
There are the cheapest recliners imaginable. Those things are thin, and then there's no padding on the footrest. It's
Oh.
like a plank of wood. When we went and saw Evangelion,
Oh, that's right.
yeah, I was like, and then I had that weird guy next to me, and you're not spaced out as much too. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
annoying.
I
He was like
remember
on his
this.
phone the whole movie. It's like, why do you go see a 3.5 hour Evangelion movie if you're gonna be on your phone the whole time?
That's a fun topic to get into at some point.
Yeah,
Movie theater
this
etiquette.
has really brought it up to a lot of people. I saw a poll. I don't know what it was done through, but it was 1/4 of people at the wherever they polled them hadn't been back to the theater since pre-COVID that are going to
Mm,
see Barbie.
wow.
And probably, I mean, a lot of people are seeing Oppenheimer because of Barbie, so probably very close. But yeah, Barbie's definitely bringing a lot of people back in, even though it's probably not going to be the highest grossing movie since COVID happened, which that is still going to be Avatar. But Avatar did really good on the international front comparative to last time. It was like the other way around. It
Yeah,
was definitely better domestically.
yeah, definitely in this case, the combination of having both Barbie and
Hmm.
Oppenheimer, like that box office, has just been
Yeah,
killing it.
two
Um,
different movies that kind of get two different crowds, but then people grouped them together just because they're coming out on the same day, and they're both like one's a big IP and one of them's a big director. Probably like one of the more popular, directors did Dark Knight. Obviously, everybody knows what he's done, but definitely kind of getting both crowds, and then both people just everybody that likes movies is going to see both of them, and then they kind of
Yeah.
got that nice social media stuff since like January when the dates were officially released.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest casualty of this whole thing, though, everybody forgets Mission Impossible came out 2 weeks before that and did not do as good as it was going to because it got kicked out of IMAX like 2 weeks. Whatever their name, I forget who releases those. Is it Universal or Warner Brothers?
Paramount
Paramount, jeez. Yeah,
Mission Impossible.
Paramount did a horrible job. They should have released that thing in June,
Yeah.
like early June, and they would have made like probably like 900. But no, they bluffed that. But yeah, Barbie and Oppenheimer. What order should we talk about these?
I was
Is the
about to
real
ask you the
question.
same question. Um,
Um.
I'd say we start off with the more serious film.
Okay, yeah, because I feel like I'll have a little bit less to say about Barbie.
Yeah, maybe that's it, but I think it's also just
And
on
I'd
a
rather like
topic.
get into
I'd rather,
get into
yeah,
Oppenheimer.
I think talking about Oppenheimer first feels
Mhm.
just like the right thing to do.
Yeah. Um. Also, on a note, I'll send you the link to this video. There's this guy who's part of a YouTube channel group that I like called Funhouse. They're kind of on the downs, but he did a video on his own channel called the Barbenheimer how to watch Barbie Oppenheimer, and it just goes like into like an insanity down roll of how to watch the movie. And
Mhm.
so that was like my favorite like video I saw come out of that. It's pretty funny if you can check it out.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
but I'll send it to Dylan, so it'll be in the description of the YouTube video. But anyway,
Woo!
going into Oppenheimer. Um,
Yes.
I mean, the first impression of the movie for me going in was I saw it in IMAX. I hadn't seen a movie in IMAX in so long. Um, First time seeing a 70 millimeter IMAX. There's no there's no ads because then they would have to change the aspect ratios and masking and all that. So it just goes straight into it. There's no trailers, and it felt like a montage or like a movie trailer going into it because it's just like music right in, and you're just seeing this guy laying in bed, and then it's going through like all these scenes of him doing stuff, and it hops around a little bit at the beginning, not as much as later, but it hops around a little bit, and so I'm like, this is very interestingly structured for like the first 5 minutes. It definitely just kind of throws you into the deep end, and you're just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Especially with the swelling music like right off the bat, it just really gets you. I think the big thing about that too is what's his name? They got a new composer. It's not Hans Zimmer anymore.
Yes.
Uh,
I believe it was Ludwig Göransson, or was it
yes,
Lauren Ball?
Ludwig Göransson, I think.
It was that or Lauren Ball. Probably
Ludwig
something we should double
Göransson,
check.
scorer of Oppenheimer. You're right. Yeah,
And
and so I really liked his score. It
Lauren
was
Ball
great, but
did.
yeah, it's very much there.
Lauren Ball did Mission Impossible. That's why I got them
Oh,
mixed up.
we don't talk about that.
No,
What's
the
that movie?
new, the
It's
new.
Barbieheimer.
Ah.
So
Okay.
yeah, that intro is definitely like really grabs you, and then it kind of gets into like setting up the structure of the story for the beginning parts of Oppenheimer and how he gets into the Project Manhattan. Jeez, I'm loving it.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was definitely a really like interesting intro. It kind of just throws you in the deep end, but I really like that too. There's just a lot being thrown at you at once. You have all this inner monologue, and then you have all this music, and you're just kind of like going with it until it kind of like settles down once he gets back to America.
Mm. I will say, even though I did appreciate the structure, I do think that was maybe the most confusing aspect of the film for me in terms
Okay.
of like I kind of wish it was a little more um, linear.
Okay, yeah. I knew going into it had like an unconventional structure, and I kind of liked that they would go back from the two different because there's the three periods of time they were essentially doing. They were doing present in black and white and past and like colored from like Oppenheimer's perspective was like the thing. Like colored was Oppenheimer's perspective and black and white was like objective.
Mhm.
Um and I liked kind of going back forward because it was kind of connecting the pieces at the end. But before that it kind of was not as much disengaging, but more just kind of like what are they doing with this? Because like you had no idea what was going on at all in those like later scenes early in the movie.
Yeah, for sure. I think I, it was just one of those things at first that it was a little confusing for me, but it didn't at all like deter from the movie to where it bothered me and like I couldn't enjoy the film. I think I was mostly unfamiliar with the story, and I think
Hmm.
if I had known a little bit more about Oppenheimer going into it, I would have appreciated that structure even more. Because I think particularly with a lot of the like Robert Downey Jr. scenes and his character, I was a little like it didn't hit me as hard by the end of the movie, like his impact and like everything that they were going for. But I, even though I thought his performance was amazing, it just, I guess for me that was like the one thing where I got a little bit like I just felt like I wasn't invested as I should be.
Hmm. Yeah, I see a lot of people that I've talked to at the theater when it's been showing. They've been a lot of people either like the first half or don't, and then you either like the ending or don't, and then there's some other stuff that people have not liked about it that I'll definitely get into. But I feel like if the ending isn't it for you, then you're just kind of like I'm bored, and you kind of just disassociate while watching the movie because you're just like I'm not interested in the story because I didn't get what was happening. And I hear that happening from some people. They're just kind of confused or just disinterested in what's going on because they haven't been set up enough because they just thought that whatever part up until that point wasn't really grabbing them either structurally or story wise.
Mm. But I will say, other than just the structure of the story, everything else about the movie worked for me. It was like I pretty much appreciated. From like it's probably among my favorite Christopher Nolan films now. I would say it's right behind Memento.
Hmm.
But it has been a long time since I've seen some of his older works, even like the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but I do want to like I just feel the weight of this story and the fact that it was more of a like compared to his other works, it was actual um, true, real events that took place. I really
yeah,
appreciated the performances, especially the cast. There was so many cameo roles and moments and things that people, so many people showing up, which could have been, it was an issue for some people, like not knowing not knowing the names of every single character, or not realizing by the end that like this random guy was gonna be there and he was gonna be this
yeah,
like the spy, or
yeah. You
like
didn't really have to understand the names because a lot of the scenes they would just show the person that they were talking to in like some flashback, which are like they're like ah yes the I forget his name whatever incidents the Bali incident with the communist guy who had to go and he was like one of the early incidents that made him lose clearance. I think that was associated with the Communist Party. I think it was Boulay. That might be wrong. Anyway,
mm,
with that guy, they would just show him, and then they like showed him like as a outcast in like South America because he had to flee, and then with the guy who was the spy, they like brought up his name as like he was a Russian spy, and then they
mm-hmm,
just showed him at the Manhattan Project. They would do that a lot, where they'd be like, we're talking about this guy, and then they would just show a flashback of him, but not like a big flashback, just like a couple frames of just like the guy
yeah,
just
just
standing
like a
there, like, oh,
nod.
okay, that guy. I kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. It's just
yeah.
like
I liked it
because
too.
the movie is very much like here's a million actors you know, and you know them from stuff you like, and you're kind of just like you know them by who they are rather than the character, especially if they're in these very small roles. Like for example, Remy Malek has this tiny role as like the big cataclysmic event at the end of the movie for a certain character that we'll get into. And I don't remember his name, but I know is played by Rami Malek. Same with like, what's his name? The guy who played Han Solo. He had a great role in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Forget his name, but he didn't even have a name in the movie. He's just like assistant, senator assistant to Robert Downey Jr.'s character. He
I
didn't even
almost
have a
said
name, and
Colin
so like,
Trevorrow, but that's a director.
yeah, no. Um,
uh, we'll get there.
yeah, there's a Alden Einrich.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like there's a lot of people like that. And so with the movie. You just kind of like are like watching all these really good actors and actresses just do their thing, and I really
Mm,
liked that. And one thing I remember before the movie came out is that not only is like black and white and like color like that certain thing, or it's like you know the building of the bomb and then like after it was I think Nolan said specifically that black and white films are the black and white parts of the film are objective, whereas the color is the subjective of Oppenheimer's point of view. And so you can kind of see that a lot as like some of them get kind of weird
yeah.
and like more artsy with them compared to like the black and white shots are very much like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, 12 Angry Men, very much just shot very specifically, just giving you everything in the frame, giving you the detail very laid out, whereas the colored shots are very much more artistically done and more like
Hmm.
cinematic, and that's kind of like the reason for it. Um, but yeah, for Oppenheimer's character in general, I really liked his character just because he's not. I feel like people go into this thinking or like thinking the mindset like, oh, this is supposed to paint him in a good view or something. It does not. He's not painted as a good guy. He's just painted as a guy in history, and how his character is perceived. You're not supposed to, you're not necessarily supposed to like him, and you're not really supposed to empathize with him, but you can kind of understand what was going on with him because he's a character very on early in the movie. It's established he's very much a fence post person. He doesn't choose a side. He specifically says that when he's asked to join the Communist Party by the whatever that guy's name is. Um,
Can't remember
the
anyone's name in this movie except for
well, no,
Oppenheimer. It's
it's just
fine.
the character's name.
No, I
He had
get
like
it.
that weird French name, and it's gonna annoy me. But yeah, him, whatever his name was. Uh, God, what was that called? Chevalier. There you go, Chevalier. Cheva-
Chevalier?
Chevalier. God, Chevalier. So Chevalier's character, which is played by Jefferson Hall. Um, he like asked him like, why have you joined the party? And Florence Pugh's there. She's like, why have you joined the party? And he's like, well, I like to keep myself out of politics. I like to keep myself, doesn't like the true stuff. And that's kind of how he goes into making the bomb. He goes into the bomb kind of making like, I'm not here to side with a war. I'm here to just stop the Germans because they're doing the ultimate atrocity,
Right.
especially against his people. And he says that specifically. And you kind of see that once the Germans get defeated, he kind of has like that stuff, kind of has that idea. He's like, well, why am I still doing this then? And then you have that big meeting with all the people that are working on the Manhattan Project that are like the younger people that he brought on. They're like, hey, we're like petitioning to stop this because we don't need to use the nuke anymore. And like that's the big point with them is like, hey, we don't need to do this. We need you to help us spearhead it. And he's like, well, just I can't. You're forcing me to make a choice, so I'm not going to make a choice. I'm just going to keep going with what I'm doing. And that's kind of like been his whole thing. He never makes a decisive choice in his life. He just kind of goes the way people steer him very slightly, unless it's never anything big. Because when he gets asked to join the Manhattan Project, it's like, oh, we want you to head this thing, and that's kind of like the accumulation of his career is like he wants to be remembered and known, and kind of for something big, and like be this great scientist, but he never wants to choose who he wants to be perceived as or what he wants to be perceived as. It's kind of like his thing, and so he's kind of this man of like no like intent or discretion. Like he never has something he wants except for that he wanted to make the bomb and just be able to achieve something that he didn't think was possible once he found out it possibly could be achieved. And from that point on, he very much ends up being like this character that is dealing with all the mistakes of him not being decisive in his life, and trying to kind of stay on that fence post as long as he could, as you saw with Florence Pugh's character. That's like an early um, fallout of him not being decisive and of him not like asserting himself in a certain way. And you see that later on with his security hearing and such as how he's perceived after the bomb and the witch hunt against him. And it's very much like kind of you're watching this man being taken apart because he never stood up for anything, essentially.
Yeah, and I do think the strongest elements of the film really come down to Oppenheimer himself and the thought provoking
Yeah.
dynamic of of creating the bomb and from that point on, like this caused a ripple effect where everyone around the world felt that they needed to do this, and now we're in a situation where you know so much time has passed since then where everyone has
Mhm.
access to nuclear weapons, and so it's
Yeah.
like his tragedy is that helped he helped in the development of it, and but he never but like you said, he never wanted it to be something that brought this much conflict as well as destruction. He just, he was just doing his job, and he was trying to stop, someone from committing genocide and all these things.
Exactly.
And so, but then the movie really takes a turn and becomes this like a sort of attack on him, and like trying to, like, people questioning what he stands for, what, like what his true intentions were. And I really loved how they, especially, like, I mean, we both have talked about the practical effects of the film are insanely good across the
Hmm.
board,
They're
but
just insanely done. And um, just a keynote on that. I hate when people see like effects like that and stuff, and they're like just like thermally online people or whatever, and they're just like, oh, these are how are this different from like CGI? It's like it doesn't practical doesn't mean it has to be realistic. It just means it's done in a certain way that isn't through like computer generation
yeah,
graphics. And it's so annoying when people are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And it's like I loved all those explosion scenes, especially like the synapses kind of his brain going on comparative
mm-hmm.
to like the bomb getting set off. I love that. All those like
Yeah,
practical like space stuff was just beautiful. But yeah, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you.
Oh no, that's okay. That's what I was going to get into, is just those elements early on. I loved
Hmm.
all those like quick cut instances of like a certain line of dialogue would be said,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden they'd show like something getting ready to implode, and you just hear
Yeah,
that really loud and quick sound effects, like, and
yeah.
like you're just like watching this going like, oh, like you're having to like kind of catch your breath a few
Hmm.
times, and then like the weight of that really comes across well when you're seeing it in theaters, because you start to really realize just like the I guess, to use this word again, the weight of the whole situation.
Yes,
But
yeah.
but also, yeah, like the practical effects there and the bomb, and all of that was extremely well done. But I also just, like we were talking about, his at some point the film really continues to delve into his own psyche, and there's this amazing scene that you keep hearing the sound effect throughout the film of people uh, stomping down on some bleachers,
Hmm.
and you don't really realize that's what it is until until the scene happens where they show
Yeah.
it happening, and that scene is to me one of the most just I tragic and like kind of horrific scenes for Oppenheimer, because
Yeah.
he gets to this point where he is just trying to be that guy who all these hundreds of millions of people are see as almost a hero for stopping the war, and with because of the bomb when it went off on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and he has to sort of be that like American hero kind of guy, like, yeah, we, like, he has to sort of act like he's proud of it,
Yeah, yeah,
and
because
but
like,
that,
oh, a big achievement. We ended the war,
yeah,
and I'm the guy who's like
he's the
headed
face
the
of it.
program that's solely responsible. Yeah, exactly.
And even though he wasn't the only person involved, he is just the face of that operation. But then
Hmm.
you see him simultaneously giving this speech. You see his reality and his mind start to crumble around him, and he starts seeing all these faces in the crowd of people who are go from being excited and happy and cheering him on to being um, having the look of someone who just was survived, or maybe even perished from the bomb.
Yeah.
And so you see like that, like the ashes and the decay and all that. It's
Hmm.
just heart-wrenching, because like, particularly for those of us who are a little bit more familiar with the bombings, and have seen
Hmm.
other films, or even imagery of the actual events themselves and know just how devastating it was, like, that really hits home. And
Yeah.
Lucas and I have both seen films that delve into it, especially the horrific aspect of it. So
Yeah.
I was actually a
On
little surprised. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, keep going. I'm
No, I
gonna
was gonna
just
say
add
I was
on to it.
actually
Yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say I was a little bit surprised too, um, that the film didn't show any of the bombs. I'm kind of glad
Mhm.
it didn't, but I was sort of expecting to see at least one of them.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily, the reaction of people,
On the ground, but
experience.
like the
Yeah,
bombs being dropped.
yeah.
And that's exactly what I was gonna get into. I really liked how they did that. They didn't show any of the effects of the people that were in New Mexico that experienced it, how the land was taken from the Native Americans and then given back to them, but it was radioactive and a lot of those people were affected from it. The people that eventually like lived in the area pre-bombing that are all affected by all the testing that was done there. The people in Japan that were attacked in Nagasaki and Hiroshima from the bombs. I really like that because specifically, as I said, this is a film from Oppenheimer's perspective for the most part, and all those points are going to be from his perspective, and the movie's about him essentially. And
Hmm.
so, the movie's giving you a point of view of what he experienced, and I really liked that because when the bombs are going off, he's just sitting in an office, and he's just like, "What the fuck is going on? Like, we're dropping that thing I just
Yeah.
witnessed on people." And he's like, that meeting where they're deciding the cities he didn't want to choose as kind of like his thing. They're like asking, "Oh, where do you want to drop it?" And he's like, just like, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna be like, I'm part of this, but I'm not part of this. Kind of like normal thing that he kind of did throughout the movie. And he just kind of like watched this guy just stewing there, and then they get all the news, and he has that speech with the bleachers, and he kind of have his like imagination of what it does to a human, because you never have the reality of it. You just have what he thought and what he saw, and I really liked that. There's like great films that deal with what those people went through in Japan, what those people went through in New Mexico, and I think that those better serve it than trying to shoehorn that into a plot of a movie about the guy who made it, and kind of the message that they're trying to send with this movie, showing these horrific things, um, is very different because it's obviously not painting Oppenheimer in a good light. The film, it's just kind of like this man. It's not good or bad, I would per se, but just like the follies of a man. And I think that it was good not showing the result of that directly. They have scenes where you watch people look at the results of it and just how like disturbed and gross out they are from it. But like I feel like trying to put that in this film just wouldn't have fit greatly narratively. And I feel like there's just things that just better serve it. There's like Barefoot Gen obviously is like probably the best one I think for like Hiroshima bombing. But there's like great documentaries
Grave of the
obviously about that.
Fireflies.
Grave of the Fireflies, that's not even about the nukes being dropped, but that's about the bombings of Tokyo, which is like still like super dark and
Right, about
bad.
the
Just like
survivors and
yeah, and the civilian like result and how they were, because they were just all people essentially.
yeah.
And like I really liked how they kind of went through it, because it's not the main focus of the film, because the gravity of that situation is on Oppenheimer, and he has to deal with it and these atrocities, and he goes to Truman to talk about them, and you can kind of feel like, as Truman said, "Get this crybaby out of my office." It's like, you went through with doing this thing, you knew you could probably do it, and now you're dealing with the atrocities of it. You're not the one who pressed the button, I'm the one who sent the nuke there. Kind of like, hey dude, if
Like
you
no
didn't
one's
want to
gonna
be a part
care.
of this, yeah, no one's gonna care what you say. You're the you're one of the biggest faces of science in America. You opened up Pandora's box of world, weaponry, and you did this, but obviously they're saying like, oh, if I didn't do this, someone else would have done it. Then someone else would have done it. Kind of like the thing is like, you chose to do this, and then you chose not to back out when you felt morally construed and like morally conflicted about what was going on. And kind of his character then dealing with the results of him not speaking up, being like, hey, I'm going to drop this project because I don't feel comfortable being part of this project anymore, that we are not bombing the Nazis, but we're going to bomb civilian cities in Japan. And kind of like I really like that because he never knows like the true amount of the. I mean, obviously, he probably saw the photos and stuff, but you never see from his perspective the true amounts of horrors. He just has to imagine it, and like him imagining all these, just like a small town, like the people that he helped cultivate in Los Alamos. He just sees that thing happening to them, and he just that's all he can do is just imagine the horrors of what he caused, and that's like forever going to haunt him. And you kind of see that as well as his career being completely destroyed because of his kind of indifference in that. Eventually, when he gets older, though, he has a lot of uh, things that he goes after, and that kind of leads to his security clearance getting taken away, which is kind of like Act 2, Act 3. But very much that like that kind of part of his character I really like is just kind of showing through his faults of not being up to his own morals and what he thought was right, he kind of destroyed himself internally, and I really
Hmm.
liked that. And I definitely don't think that the visuals were needed of the
Hmm.
actual atrocity because of just the you wanted to see everything through Oppenheimer and as a movie through his point of view. At least those parts, the colored parts, and I really liked how they stuck with that throughout the movie. And I really loved like that just that scene at the auditorium with like him just imagining the bomb because that's really like the gravity of his situation is that he'll just never know the ground floor atrocities of it, and he just has to imagine it like all the time, probably his whole life until he died.
Yeah, exactly. And the movie definitely leaves you with a lot to think about, especially in the
Yeah,
final line
yeah,
when it's
especially the
revealed.
final line. Yeah, when we get to that. Um, I think the second part of the movie, up getting to that part that kind of entails because it feels like kind of almost two movies at
Hmm.
points because you have the Oppenheimer part and then you have the security clearance to the Robert Downey Jr. character's part. And Robert Downey Jr.'s character is named Louis Strauss, not Strauss, because he makes a point of that. Strauss. I might be getting those confused or whatever, but yeah. Um, his whole thing is that he's going to be confirmed to Senate for Truman. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was him. Um, and they're like, okay, we just have some people from your time on the energy board, and that's kind of like when Oppenheimer was post uh post nuke and he was doing stuff, and this is all through the objective lens, and he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Like his whole character is he's just very assertive, and it's very different from how he was portrayed in the subjective part. He's just kind of like, oh yeah, why would they take that like this thing? A child could make a nuke out of this. This is more useless than this. When he was like shutting down Strauss's thing that he was saying, and that kind of like publicly embarrassed him at that level. And then in the meeting when they had the hydrogen bomb report, it's like we need to start making H bombs. He's very vehemently like, no, we're not going to make H bombs. That's like the worst thing that you could do. Because why would we make H bombs when we have all these nukes? What's the difference? Because we made so many nukes, and kind of like he's a very different character played in the black and white parts of the film compared to the color, and it's like very construing how these memoirs of his own were written in like the black and the colored versions compared to his objective view that all these characters have of him, of this kind of like big guy doing this important job that did some really important thing in the past, and he's like everybody takes his word for it. But then once the security hearing comes, goes back to color, and he's just kind of like this shriveled up old man just sitting in this chair being ambushed. And it's kind of very interesting bouncing around through these kind of point of views, but very much, uh, there is kind of this point of view that I like is very changing through these um, points, and so I really like that. Um, and when you get that security hearing was just very integral part of the story that was very interesting because it was very different from the other parts. But you had all these kind of just people attacking Oppenheimer. Obviously, it was a planned ambush and how they did it, and then how he was able to kind of turn around from that uh, later in the movie and have people who were on his side then kind of do that same thing to someone else was really cool.
Yeah. That yeah, I really like seeing the transition of Strauss being
Strauss. Louis
be,
Strauss.
being like in control and believing that he essentially from the moment he you know got to know Oppenheimer and
Mhm.
experienced this whole thing with him and Einstein and early in the film, like he pretty much had this vendetta to
Yeah. Yeah, he had this
um
whole big thing kind of because he felt like, I'm the dean of Princeton and I'm as smart as these guys, but they don't respect me. And that's kind of like his whole thing. These guys don't accept me as part of their group, as the part of the actual geniuses of the world. I am kind of just a level below them and like a senator, which is what he was getting appointed to be. Or that he was a commissioner of like security or something. For that presidential cabinet. He was being appointed to a cabinet. And that's kind of like excuse me, his height was like that. And he's not like these internationally renowned geniuses. And so he kind of feels like they're always out to get him. And when one of them kind of like just belittles his intelligence, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to do whatever I can to kind of bring you down. And that's what he did with Oppenheimer, sending a package to the legendary, oh, I don't want to say his name, David Damantian.
close. Mm-hmm.
Borden's character, William Borden, sends him a package like, hey, here's his whole security thing. Not from me. Make it so he gets in trouble. And so they have that whole security hearing because it's like a special hearing, essentially, if you haven't seen the movie, where they don't have a court and it's kind of just like, oh, we have all this evidence, but the defense doesn't get it and we're just hearing it because it's not actually a case in court. And so they just destroy him there. Pretty much is the gist. What's her name has a great scene in it, though. Emily Blunt, just like going toe to toe with the main guy leading it.
Yeah.
About like her involvement with the Communist Party and stuff. She was great in this film. She was probably like she might have been my favorite one of my favorite parts of the film. Like I'm not really a huge Emily Blunt fan, but I really loved her in this film. And same with like Rami Malek. I just like Rami Malek though. He was just good in his
Yeah.
short role. And what's his name was really good. Jason Clarke as that character.
Yeah.
Roger Robb. I have the IMDb pulled up here because there's so many freaking names.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah,
characters and
Roger
actors.
Robb. His character was great. He was just like, did you or did you not? He's just like drilling into
Yeah.
Oppenheimer. But then again, it could be just like couldn't have been as intense just because it's from Oppenheimer's point of view, and he has like that crazy scene where he's just like very brightly staring, and like it's like a nuke's going off in his brain because he's just being decimated as a
Mm-hmm.
person, and that's kind of like what the whole situation is, and it has all these parallels to the nuke being off. He's being decimated politically and personally because now he's going to be, oh hey, it's that guy that built the nuke and then lost his security clearance because he was a communist. Is essentially what everybody's going to think of it. On another note, my favorite part, speaking of Emily Blunt and Albert Einstein, is like a slapstick character in this movie sometimes. Um, the first scene is him by a lake and then he loses his hat like Charlie Chaplin. That was hilarious. And then that scene where he what's his name gets dropped off by Strass. Oppenheimer gets dropped off by Strass, and then out of nowhere, Albert Einstein's like, "Oh, it looks like you're back," and he's like, "What is?" I've seen some other people like post about it and tweet about it and like comment on Letterboxd about it. Like I was like almost laughing because it was just out of nowhere, just Albert Einstein was like, "Hello," and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was super funny. But yeah, his character's great. But yeah,
That
the
was like
whole
the best
security.
casting.
Yes, exactly. Like that was great. But yeah, the whole security thing then leads into the main black and white timeline, which is Robert Downey Jr. getting approved, but he doesn't.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the whole thing is like they're all here to bring me down, and it all goes back to when I brought him to Princeton, and him and Albert were talking about me, and then what's his name has that great line, Alden's character,
Yeah.
Senate aide.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like maybe they're talking about something more important.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's
That was like
it's like
a
maybe they weren't
great
talking about
line.
you at all. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they're actually talking about something important.
And then you find out what they're actually talking
Yeah,
about,
exactly.
and it
And
has
yeah,
nothing to do.
the ending was great, and it kind of really wraps around the whole film into a
Mm-hmm.
bow, and
Yeah.
kind of Oppenheimer realizing the gravity of the situation he caused and kind of throwing it at Albert Einstein. And they kind of just like sit there and realize the world that they've created, because essentially they both were there and helped create this reality that the world is now living in and we are living in.
Yeah, it's really a like there rarely any films that really stand out that like have such an impactful ending line
Mm-hmm.
and that one that makes you think about the reality of the world now, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like obviously there's like surprising endings and there's
Mm-hmm.
thought-provoking endings and shocking endings, but this
Yeah.
is like something that really leaves you like with a whole new perspective on like what our world has become, and like and how in the heck are we gonna deal with it
Yeah.
going
Did you ever
forward.
play any of the Metal Gear Solids by chance?
Unfortunately, no.
5 is very much like Oppenheimer at the end. I mean, Metal Gear Solids are insane storylines. They have some crazy crap going on. It's like
Yeah.
Lynchian crap. But the ending is very much about like nuclear disarmament. Not very much, but it's one of the key pieces. But it's like in the game, you're like a war dog essentially. You private contractor, and you can make nukes, and you make nukes. And at the end, at a point in the game, it tells you how many people that are that have an account that played the game that uploaded, their data to be shared online. How many nukes are left? And there's a secret scene that you'd never happen because no one will ever get rid of their nukes in the game. But if there's full nuclear disarmament, there's like a peace ending. But
Hmm.
that'll never happen. Just like in reality, just like Oppenheimer, it's just like this bag of worms, can of worms has been opened, and you can't put it back in. And
Yeah.
that kind of like very big sentiment happens in that, as well as Oppenheimer. And I really liked Oppenheimer, especially the visual part on the end. That was just like a
Yeah.
very big cherry on top. Cherry on top. Jeez, I cannot talk today. But yeah, before that, I definitely did love the downfall of Robbie Downey Jr.'s character.
Hmm.
That was
Hmm.
great. Um, it was funny. He was like, "This is the first time I've had to act since like Iron Man," and a bunch of Marvel people got mad. But I can understand what he means. But
Yeah.
there was he was really good in this film. I just loved it. He was like, "They can't do this to me," and then he just realizes they're doing what he did to Oppenheimer. He's like, "Fuck!" And he just gets completely screwed. That was great. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was just like such a. I thought that was really fun. Just watching the downfall happen for like 30 minutes. Like, oh, it's all connecting. It's like a puzzle being put together in front of me. And I really like that. But yeah, the ending with Oppenheimer is like, remember when I said there's a possibility we could set the world on fire, the atmosphere on fire, and destroy the world from the nuke? And Albert Einstein's like, yeah, and he's like, I think we did. And then that happens, and the visual of just the world being blown up with nuclear explosions happens, and you're just like, oh wow, damn, that's heavy.
Yeah.
And I really liked that, because that's definitely more important than Strauss.
Right. Exactly. Like it's definitely the reality of that whole situation
Yeah, because there's
is
always
it speaks beyond the film now, because
yeah.
it is you know the actual reality that we are now dealing with as people to this day. So
Mhm.
it's definitely one of those things that um, links everything together in something that is just like we really have no idea if this is ever going to change now, like
Yeah, exactly.
if these events from way back when actually cause something that we're forever going to be dealing with until
Yeah.
the end of the world. But who
Yahoo.
knows?
On that note,
Yeah.
Barbie.
Oh God. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
That's
What
why
I
I
was
was
like.
very happy. Like I saw people like that's why I was talking about the Ryan Shorts video from Funhouse video, because he's like, "Oh, this is the best way to watch Barbie." It's very like making fun of that whole thing. Just because like, uh, I mean, obviously the way I watch it, I feel like was a very good way, or just watch them very far apart. I think as a double feature, you would have to watch Barbie first, because Oppenheimer kind of you're just like,
Yeah.
"Fuck, man." I got all
Yeah.
this existential dread about things I'll never be able to control.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
oh god. But
exactly.
yeah,
No, I
it
was gonna
was
say,
a
yeah, we'll make the Barbie review a little quicker.
yeah.
Um,
Um
I
yeah, in his video, he's like, I did the Barbie Oppenheimer swirl is my favorite one, where every 10 minutes you go to one theater and then you go to the other one.
Oh
It's
God.
just like stuff like that. It's super funny. But yeah, for Barbie, I think it is the perfect mess avoided. Like I was reading about certain things that the film could have not the cutscenes or anything, just like obviously Amy Schumer was supposed to be Barbie, and that would have kind of just been weird with
Oh.
like what they were going with. I felt like
Hmm.
she would have been good at like as like a different Barbie. That'd been fine, but her as the lead was weird. But then didn't do it. And then there was someone else that was supposed to like direct it or something. There was another thing I read, and I was like, oh, that would have been horrible. Um, and like they like kind of lucked into a really actually well done film because they just had good people that got their artistic message through, and they didn't get it too messed with through studio film. I feel like just because Greta Gerwig has more power than like say like Nia DaCosta or like whatever her name she won the Oscar for not Bull Rider, but I'm she won Best Picture like in 2020.
Oh. Yeah.
The Chinese
Nomadland.
American. Yeah, Nomadland. Her. Like they didn't have as much I feel like creative control as they could have had with like a big franchise or like a big IP thing and like Marvel. Um whereas like Greta Gerwig definitely had like full control of this, you could tell. Like almost full control of this. Like there's a lot of things that like are just
Yeah.
like very out there. Story's definitely out there. My least favorite part of it is the very obvious Chevy Equinox 2024 electric SUV that you can get pre-ordered this year if you know that. Did you know that?
I actually completely that went over my head.
That was so painful for me just because I know I like went down a whole like rabbit hole in like 90s movies with product placement because I was like
Oh.
the big time 80s and 90s, and that was like every frame was perfectly striking blue, lightning blue Chevy Equinox EV that isn't out yet because it was like a very much an ad for that. But yeah, I really liked the movie. The message, I feel like the message of the film. Some people, I mean, obviously, certain people of certain political beliefs think it's very like whatever leftist or whatever. I mean, obviously, the film is very feminist, but feminist is like an encompassing term for like humanitarianism and all that. And the film very much is like shows you the perspective of patriarchy from the opposite, and you're like, oh, you don't really want that because they kind of show like that's not good, and then Ken gets the power to take it down, but then you don't want it the other way. So it's kind of flipping it, showing, oh, you don't want either way. You don't want one class ruling the other class in this like gender dynamic. And
Yeah.
so the best way is to kind of have a structure, just where these groups come together and they kind of just talk out their feelings. And that's what they did at the end of the film, where Ken was like, I didn't really care about it anyway. Just kind of wanted to be with you. And she's like, well, we can hang out, or we
Yeah.
can have more of that stuff. We're not going to have girls night every night, and you're going to kind of have like this more structured thing where we're kind of working together. But yeah, like the poison of Ken and like stuff like that was just so funny. Ken
Hmm.
was greatly acted. Everyone casted in this movie was great. Honestly, there was not one person I didn't like, except for maybe Simu Liu. I feel like Simu Liu could have been someone else. I don't like Simu Liu that much as a person.
Oh.
there's some stuff that came out about him, but
Uh-oh.
nothing crazy bad. But it was like his Reddit leaked, and he was like a kind of like one of those like incel basement trolls on his old Reddit before he got famous.
Interesting.
But him as an actor, I don't think he's that great. I liked him in Shang-Chi, but like outside of that, I feel like he's just kind of like very one-dimensional.
That's really all
Uh,
I've seen
yeah,
him in.
that's all I really see from him outside of that is he's like this one-dimensional comic guy. And whereas like Ken, played by literally me, Robert Ryan, I almost said Robert Downey Jr. Ryan Gosling. He's just great. Everything that Ryan Gosling has like touched in like the last 5 years, 10 years has just been great. He just picks great films to be in and great characters to be, and he just like really goes into those characters in a well structured way where he does it correctly. And Margot Robbie, I could not see anyone else as Barbie. I don't know how they didn't pick her to begin with. She's just great. And the story structure is really good. I feel like the worst character is like Will Ferrell. He's just kind of just there. But like the mother and daughter thing is very important, I feel, for this story, and kind of like the passing on of like the toy, and kind
Mm.
of like metaphorically passing on like motherhood or like just womanhood to the next person, person that you gave life to and person that you raised, and kind of like understanding them. kind of the mother-daughter dynamic, similar to like in a different way, but similar to kind of how Ken and Barbie's dynamic is. And I really liked both of those characters. But it's just like a really fun movie. Um, definitely like PG-13. I could take like a 10-year-old to it, like an 8-year-old if they're like okay, but like not like for like young kids. But it was really fun. Shot really good. I love the practical sets. All this like old school. It's very done like a 50s film, like the driving the car and all this beautiful like just like it's on a stage. It's on a stage, but it looks so fun because that's what you want from the Barbie world, Barbie Land.
Right.
You just want it to look fun, and that was like just so well done. It was just so fun. The fight scenes, the dance numbers were great. I hope it wins Song of the Year. I Am Just Ken
It will.
is Song of the Year. I'm sorry. I
Or
don't think
Billie
anything's going to
Eilish.
beat that. Billie Eilish, I could see. Okay, either one. Because the Billie Eilish one, I heard many people crying to every showing. They're just like coming out of there, just like, it's just like very much definitely hit a vein with some women. I could definitely see that at my showing that I went to. That was employees at the theater, and then like definitely see like people coming out crying. But just as an event movie, it's like the first, like one of the biggest event movies since Endgame and like Infinity War. And I just think it's more encompassing too because everybody knows what Barbie is. Not everybody's into Marvel, and not everybody was like, I'm not gonna go watch all these movies, even though it was higher grossing probably and stuff. It's very different kind of thing where just the range of people going to see this movie are mostly women that haven't, like at my theater, it was mostly women that just haven't been to the theater in so long. And then they would take their husbands or their boyfriends. Especially because my theater caters to like older people, so there's a lot of old people that are just coming like, I haven't been to the theater since 2019 or like pre-COVID, and I'm gonna go see this with my friends because it sounds fun. I brought my granddaughter, and like they're like, oh yeah, we've just been streaming for like whatever. I haven't been to the theater forever. There's so many people like, I've never been to this theater. I just haven't been to the theater forever, and I think that's the biggest part of it is like this crazy event movie that was super fun. And definitely did have like a really good story and like an emotional note to it that struck people. Um, it's just like all the characters are so memorable and everyone's just so fun in the movie. I feel like it drags a little bit in like the like emotional part at the end with a woman who created Barbie a tiny bit. That was like my least, like it went on a little bit too long, but
Hmm.
like it wasn't too bad in that point. I really just liked the film and overall, I liked all the characters in the film. I thought the story was perfect for what you're going for. You don't need it to be too serious, and you don't need it to be like too dumb. It was like the perfect characterization of them. There was just so many great lines like, you're a fascist. I don't even control the flow of commerce or own a railroad. It's just like all this like dumb, like very poignant stuff. There's like a stab at like the band Pavement that my manager was like, I don't want to see it now because I'm a Pavement fan. It's like a joke. It was like there's all these like little quips that were just great, and it's like Greta Gerwig is definitely like really good at writing like those quips and like the comedy and just getting like a good flow for that like dialogue between characters. It was just so awesome. But yeah, all the main cast just played their characters to a T and just had all these exuberance of like body comedy, physical comedy, like actual comedy. Ryan Gosling was just great at that. I think he was just so awesome. I just he
He
was
was
everything I
Kenneth.
wanted from that movie. He was Knuff. Like the little stuff like that. Like I am Knuff. That was hilarious. Like to come up with that idea. Jesus. Uh it was just like it was just a fun, great film, and I'm happy for all the stuff that's coming out from it too. Just like everybody going back to the theater that haven't been to the theater in so long, and it's just great.
Yeah, it really surprised me all around.
Hmm.
I think I was anticipating it being like, I've seen different reviews for it, and a lot of the reviews I have seen, to be honest, have not, I don't feel like some of the people I've seen that really understood the full point, or like I think there was a lot of like, particularly guys who were taking away from this film as like, well, it wasn't made for me. Like, yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Like,
Sorry,
sure.
Ken is like one of the best male comedy characters put to the screen in the last like 3 years, like 4 years. I
Seriously.
can't name a better. Like he's just so fun. Like,
Yeah.
and obviously not everything's with him. Not every scene is with him, but he's still
Right.
just great. And like outside of that, like the other stuff just carries itself enough. Alan, I mean, sorry, I haven't talked about you, Alan.
Michael
You're great.
Cera.
Michael Cera, is like at the point where he has enough money, he doesn't have to do movies, and he just chooses to do the funnest things.
Yeah.
Like he just appears in random crap as like super fun characters, and he was just great in this. He's just like, I'm Alan. How you?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm the discontinued friend of Ken that they only made one of. So there's only one of me in Barbie Land, and it's just great. Like all that stuff. It was just, yeah. People try to make it like overtly political and stuff, and like obviously that's the world we live in America, very politicized. And I mean, whereas there is a political message with this, and there is like a message that they're going for, you don't have to agree with it, I guess. If you want to watch this movie, but like honestly, it's like, I mean, not going against the message. I agree with it. It's just like, I mean, I feel like you can enjoy this film without having completely aligned with her. It's just a good film. And I feel like people try to depoliticize movies that are political and politicize movies like specifically like if you watch this, you're this. And it's just like whatever, dude. It's just like it's a good movie. Obviously I agree with the stuff in it. And but it's not specifically a movie for women. And it's not specifically like all men suck. Like if you don't get nuances in the like the undertone of just like what they're talking about, like the subplot is about like how Ken shouldn't be in charge, but neither should Barbie. There should be a thing about it. I mean, I'm trying to politically delve down the Barbie movie right now, and that just seems dumb. Just watch the movie; it's fun. Like,
Right.
it's just like what? There's not that many good comedies coming out. Like, I mean, No Hard Feelings is like the one this year. Um, like, like it's been a while since there's been like a good movie where you're in theater and you're like everybody's having a good time, and that was
Yeah.
like really fun to see that and have a
Yeah.
great time with a theater. And I just definitely a great movie. If you haven't seen it, go definitely watch it.
Yeah. In the middle of this recording, my girlfriend saw the movie and texted me that Barbie was a really good movie.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
We know.
bam.
My girlfriend loved
That's
it. She's seen
official.
it twice, so
Oh, nice.
she
Yeah,
saw it with me and then saw it with her mom. So
oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it really has a lot of depth to it,
mm-hmm.
and it even like it has. I wouldn't call it a movie, so to say, with like a straight agenda because
Yeah,
it
exactly.
makes fun of its own agenda. Like it's
Yeah,
actually
it's kind
it's
of
like it's a yeah.
it deconstructs its own argument and like establishes just what it's like just saying about stuff.
I think
And
the
it's
best.
not keep going.
No, you finish that.
No, I forget where I was going. So
I was just like it's like the best example of that to me is when Barbie first goes to the real world and she starts seeing everyone around her, and then she finds who she thinks is her owner, who
mm-hmm.
it's the daughter
The daughter
of
of
the of her, but at the
America
time she thinks
Ferrera.
America Ferrera's daughter in the film. And she goes up to her and like this kid warns her that she's gonna like burn her down basically, but she
Yeah.
doesn't care, and she still has this like this this enthusiasm to talk to her, and but then in the middle of that conversation she's like like she thinks she's this amazing thing, and like
Yeah.
women like Barbie, everyone loves Barbie, I'm the best, whatever. And then this little girl's like just drilling her hard, and like saying like you basically set us back 50 years, like it's like the progression, like that was so great because it's like like Greta Gerwig was involved in her. She's such a great writer, in the like monologue scene by America Ferrera, just pointing out all the issues that women have to endure on a daily basis. Like that really hits home. Obviously, the song with Billie Eilish really hits home at the end when you see, just how difficult it can be to be a woman in the world, and so the film has certain messages that are meant to come across straight and narrow, but then there are a lot of nuance, a lot of fun, poking fun at themselves. Not take the film that never truly takes itself too seriously, because it knows what it is. It's a Barbie. It's a Barbie live action movie, and it's not meant to be extremely serious in what it's trying to get across.
we see Barbie, and you're like, oh, what's she doing? She's in the real world. America dropped her off.
Oh yes.
And then she's just like, I'm here to see my gynecologist. And then that's the end of the movie. It's like, come on.
And a
It's
review
like,
is over, everyone.
yeah.
No. Yeah, like that line to me. At first, I thought it was just a funny line.
Mm-hmm.
So on the surface level, it's just a hilarious line, like because.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had to actually realize and think about it, the fact that she is Barbie, and they even joke about in the film that her and Ken don't have genitals, and so then I realized, okay, that's why she's going. I was like,
yeah, and also it's kind of like her character too entering womanhood, technically, kind of, as kind of like, oh, now she's like in the real world and a real woman.
True.
She has to do real woman things.
So there's a lot of ways to interpret it. Yeah.
It was just so fun. I just had a lot of fun with it. I'll definitely see it again, probably before the year ends.
Same here. That's going to be an amazing 4K, along with Oppenheimer. They're both going to look incredible.
Ooh, Barbenheimer.
I don't think I can do a double feature though.
Round 2.
God. What's the next Barbenheimer in the next amazing combination of two words? When is that going to happen again?
There was one that they were trying to push because of this. That's really dumb because no one would ever see both of them unless you're a parent. But it's Saw Patrol, because Saw and Paw Patrol movie came out the same day, and that was just like, that's very much not the internet getting behind something, and you guys just trying to be funny as a corporation and get more people to see your movie. Right. No one's gonna go see Paw Patrol and Saw unless
those are completely different audiences.
Yeah. Like this one definitely 100%. You can watch both. I don't think there's any way to compare them. They're two very different movies. Which one's better? Just watch them and see which one you like. I'm not going to say one's better than the other. Because they're very much just,
you can't compare them.
Completely different films. It's very different, and but yeah, they're both great. Definitely good that the movie that is bringing everyone back to the box. Movies that are bringing everyone back to the box office. First time ever in history, 2 movies grossed over 80 million in the same weekend. And it's just like great to see that. And,
with theaters really need that.
We have 2 movie theaters opening near us, which is crazy to say. People are opening up movie theaters again. One just opened like last week, and one of them's opening at the end of the year. It's like, oh, good to see that happening.
Which one? Healdsburg and what else?
Larkspur and Healdsburg.
Yeah.
Larkspur closed during COVID and got bought, and now they're being run, and they're open. So like, great to see theaters open, especially in like an area like us, very techy, Bay Area. So.
Well, guys, Lucas and I are actually going to be hanging out pretty soon.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the end of it. It's just both great films. Go see them, see which ones you like. I mean, it was great that the biggest thing out of this is that both of them have created this kind of resurgence in cinema and just great box office numbers.
Right at the time of the strike.
I know, I was about to say right as this. So we'll see what happens after that. Go indie film. Watch a bunch of A24 movies.
Go watch Talk to Me and Past
Neon.
Lives.
It's coming out. Yeah, there's whatever indie movies are in theaters. Go see those because they're the ones getting the waivers and making films still currently. So there's been 40-something movies that have been granted waivers, and they're all independent studios. So go support independent cinema in your local theater.
Yes. And Lucas and I are hopefully going to be doing another podcast
very
really soon where we will talk
Past
about
Lives. I'm spoiling. Spoiler alert. Past Lives and Talk to Me.
Ooh.
So we got 2 A24 movies, actually. We saw Past Lives a while ago.
Also 2 very different films from Barbie and
different films. Very different films. Kind of same color palette, though.
Sure.
Dark and blue.
Yes. But two of the other best films I've seen so far this year.
Yes.
So with that, we hope you all are having a great August and not getting too warm outside wherever you live. It's really hot today.
Or cold if you're in the southern hemisphere.
Where we are, my bad. Yeah, so we're really warm over here and looking forward to relaxing and watching some good stuff tonight. So let us know what you guys are watching, what you want us to talk about soon. Like I said, we've been watching a lot of movies. I would love to talk about Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 when Lucas does eventually see it. So we'll get there. But let us know what you think, and we'll be back soonish.
Yes.
But yeah, with that, Lucas, anything you'd like to say before we wrap it up?
No, not really. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Well, everyone, thanks again. You have been amazing, and this has been another episode of Mile a Minute.
Movie Talk, episode 10.
Bam!
Double digits.